So in this video series we're going to go over how to make an awesome calculator in Flash. So to set things up, go ahead and make a new Flash document, color the background of your stage, your color of your choice, and then add 7 layers. Add a text layer, a buttons layer, results, input left, input right, dynamic text, and an actions layer for our action script. I went ahead and I added the awesome calculator title to the text layer on the bottom. You can go ahead and lock that layer after you added it, and then we're going to move on to making our buttons. So let's make our buttons. We're going to use our shape tool. We're going to use a rectangle primitive. Rectangle primitive is different than a regular rectangle because it allows you to constantly change the corner shapes of your rectangle. So I have them set at 10 of corner radius. I go ahead and change the stroke color to no stroke color, and my fill color I have set as a gradient. I'll go ahead and make my first button, and you can hold down the shift key to make a perfect square. I'd like my gradient to go from top to bottom, not from left to right, so I'll use my gradient transform tool, click on the button, and turn that gradient around. Now I'd like to take my button and turn it into a movie clip object. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the F8 key, and I'm going to call him add button. Make sure that he is of type button, and then go ahead and hit OK. For his instance name, give him an instance name so that we can call upon him in our action script code. And now he's ready to go. I'd like to add some beveling to my button so he looks more button-like. So because he's a movie clip object, I can add a filter. So come down to your filters and add a bevel to your button. You can change the properties of your bevel by clicking on any of the properties and changing them to how you'd like. Now I'd like to go ahead and edit my button. So I'm going to double click upon my button. Notice that my button, because he's a button symbol, has an up, an over, a down, and a hit state already created for me. So right now he's in the up state, so this is what he's going to look like when he's up. So I'd like to add some text to him. I'd like to add a addition symbol. So I'm going to go ahead and use my text tool, make an addition symbol. Notice that it is white, but you can make it whatever color you want. Then I'll go ahead and drag that symbol on top of my button, so then my button will have the addition symbol upon it. So this is what he's going to look like when he's up, which is fine. So let's move on to the next frame. I will move to that frame in my timeline and hit the F6 key to add a keyframe. Notice it copies the contents from my first keyframe to my second keyframe, which is what I wanted. This is what he's going to look like when the user hovers over the button. So maybe I'd like to change the color a little bit or signify that, hey, you're hovering over this button. So I'm going to go ahead and change my color, maybe of my plus sign here, so then he will change colors when the person is hovering over the button. So when the user is not touching the button, it'll have a white plus symbol, and when they're hovering over the button, the plus symbol will turn pink. Let's go ahead and do our down state. So I'll click into my down state frame, hit the F6 key, and this is what I'd like him to look like when the user has pressed upon the button. So I'm going to choose the square that's behind that primitive rectangle, and I'm going to change it into a movie clip symbol. So this will be an inner button, or inner back of my button, but I'll go ahead and call him inner button. And the reason that I want to do that is so that I can add a filter, and I can choose maybe a gradient bevel. So that way when the user pushes down on my button, it'll have that gradient bevel. Let's go ahead and test my button. So Control Enter, and when I hover over the button, the symbol turns pink, and when I press upon the button, I can see that gradient bevel.